Hey everybody, welcome back to 3.03 Art of Ancient Egypt, Part 1. The Art of Ancient Egypt is a window into the beliefs and customs of the Egyptian people. What comes to mind when you read or hear the word Egypt? Pyramids? Mummies? Hieroglyphics? Ancient Egypt was a culturally rich place that produced many great works of art and architecture. You can click through these pictures and look at some of their great works. You can also click on this student guide and it will give you kind of like some background information about the lesson. And that's what we just talked about just a second ago. Ooh, wait a second. There we go. Okay, with vast desert to the east and west, the Nile River provided almost everything the people of ancient Egypt needed. The river deposited rich soil every year during the flood season, making the land fertile for farming. Egyptians mastered the techniques of irrigation and flood control. About 3100 BC, Pharaoh Narmer united the people of Upper and Lower Egypt, making the beginning of a 3,000-year civilization known today as Ancient Egypt. Historians divide the civilization into several periods, the major ones being the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. Use the slider under the map to see the dates and the areas that each kingdom encompassed. Okay, and you can click these and see those. Art in ancient Egypt reflected the importance of religion in Egyptian civilization. Pharaohs, who proclaimed themselves the living Horus, the falcon-headed sky god, spent their lives preparing for the afterlife. Scribes wrote instructions for the safe passage of a pharaoh's spirit through the underworld. They wrote using hieroglyphics on papyrus, a precursor to paper made from the fibers of reeds that grew along the Nile. Egyptian temples rising from the earth symbolize the Egyptian belief about how the world began. Work crews built monumental pyramids as tombs to house the pharaoh's spirit and built temples dedicated to their gods and goddesses. Artists covered the stone surfaces of temples and tombs with relief sculptures depicting scenes from the lives of gods, goddesses, and pharaohs. The modern city of Luxor, the site of ancient Thebes, boasts two massive temple complexes, Karnak Temple and Luxor Temple. The ruins of Karnak's great temple of Amun stand on the bank of the Nile amidst the modern development, about a mile away from the ruins of the Luxor Temple complex. An avenue lined with human-headed sphinxes connected the two. Each year, a grand procession carried a temple of Amun from its home in Karnak to Luxor. The Karnak temple complex was built over about 2,000 years ago, with successive pharaohs adding structures through the New Kingdom. Egyptian temples rose from the earth, symbolizing the Egyptian belief that the world began as a sacred mound of earth that emerged from sacred waters when time began. Karnak Temple has four precincts. A sphinx-lined avenue connects the precinct of Amun and the precinct of Mut, Amun's wife. After entering the complex through a massive gateway called a pylon, visitors walk through a courtyard towards the Great Hypostyle Hall, a structure with a forest of tall columns. More pylons and courtyards lead to the temple sanctuary, which housed the sculpture of Amun. Beyond the sanctuary is a great festival hall. Select Karnak Temple to explore more of the complex. So you can click on that and it'll show you more of the complex. The Great Hypostyle Hall is filled with rows of massive stone columns, 134 in all. The hall separates the open courtyard of the temple complex, where the festivals and ceremonies took place, from the sanctuary, which only pharaohs and priests could enter. Egyptians believed that the processional path through the hypostyle hall was a passage from this world to the next. Imagine standing in this dense forest of columns in ancient times. The taller columns in the center reach 66 feet high and have a diameter of 12 feet. At the top of the columns is a roof of stone slabs, constructed using the post and lintel method. Vertical posts, or columns, support the horizontal lintels, or slabs, near the top of the walls in a long row of windows called a clerestory, filled with stone grillwork that doesn't let in much light but does allow cool breeze. Even in the dim light, you can see brightly painted relief sculptures covering every surface. So, if this is lit up, you can click on it and it will take you to more information about each one of these things. Sculptors use the surfaces of walls and columns of the great hypostyle hall like blank canvases, filling every spot with carvings that glorify pharaohs, gods, and goddesses. Sculptors use the sunken relief technique. That is, they carved heavy contour lines below the surrounding column surface. Sunlight raking across the column creates areas of strong shadow in the sunken contours. Artists painted the relief sculptures with brilliant colors, though little paint remains today, so it's just kind of worn away in time. Carvings on the Karnak columns include images of Seti I and Ramses II, two pharaohs who constructed the great hypostyle hall, as well as images of gods and goddesses. Explore the Karnak columns activity on the next screen to learn about the carvings. Look for the name of Ramses II written in hieroglyphics in an oval-shaped cartouche. So you can click on that and it'll kind of give you hints. And this is where you can click on the columns and look at that. The natural world inspired Egyptian artists in their design of columns. Columns resemble plants growing along the Nile River. Wow, I can't talk. They also symbolize the plants growing around the original mound of earth at the dawn of the world. Artists carved column capitals to look like an open papyrus blossom, a closed papyrus or lotus bud, or a bundle of palm leaves. Explore Egyptian column design activity on the next screen to learn more. Okay, this is where you can learn more about Egyptian column design. At the Luxor temple complex, Egyptians also worshipped Amun, Mut, and Khons, just as they did at Karnak Temple. Ramses II was responsible for major construction at Luxor. He built more temples and tombs than any pharaoh before him. When you approach the Luxor temple complex, you enter through the first pylon, a massive gateway with sloping walls. Pylons are characteristic of New Kingdom architecture. Two colossal seated sculptures of Ramses II and four standing sculptures originally stood guard in front of the first pylon. Both seated sculptures, but only one of the standing sculptures of Ramses remain today. In front of the seated Ramses is one of the original pair of obelisks. An obelisk is a four-sided tapered monument with a pyramidal top. This is an obelisk. Also, the Washington Monument is an obelisk. Where was I? A characteristic of Egyptian architecture. Pharaohs usually placed obelisks in pairs at entrances to pylons and temples. This obelisk symbolizes the sun god Ra. The obelisk of Ramses II is a single piece of granite 82 feet tall. Sculptors covered it with reliefs depicting Ramses making offerings to Amun. Above each relief are hieroglyphics glorifying Ramses. The second of the pair of obelisks now stands in Paris. Okay, and these are some wrap-up activities where you can kind of quiz yourself on what we just discussed. And same here, where you can quiz yourself.